Let's talk about the voice in your head. You know, the one, that inner critic, imposter syndrome. Fancy name for feeling like you're about to get fired from a job you haven't even been hired for. Like a Roomba trying to navigate the complexities of geopolitical strategy, misguided, inefficient, and actively sabotaging your future. Welcome to Woman on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Dr. Caroline Gerner. Topic: Overcoming Imposter Syndrome and Setting Achievable Goals. Episode 172 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo, and empathy is critical when you're overcoming imposter syndrome. First, let me mention things that's been happening in our community. Congratulations to our former PhD guest, Shelley Lombard, for being named one of the 100 Black board members making a difference by Board Prospects. Shelley, you deserve this honor. Your leadership, expertise, and commitment to excellence continue to inspire and create impact. Thank you. Free training alert! Join our former PhD guest, Dr. Tracy Brower, on February 26 at Love Cincinnati for an exclusive event where she'll share the science behind proven strategies to navigate the talent revolution and drive long-term success. Best of luck, Tracy. Happy belated birthday to Dr. Mitchell Gialanza, wishing you a day as brilliant and vibrant as your art. Also, huge congratulations on obtaining your Master of Arts and your another incredible exhibition. Your achievements and support of women in tech in Malta and beyond are commendable. May your new chapter be filled with even more inspiration, success, and happiness. Now, let's go back to our topic: overcoming imposter syndrome and setting achievable goals. In this episode, Dr. Caroline Gerner, faculty chair of Kelly Executive Education Programs, an award-winning educator and LinkedIn Learning instructor, will share how to tackle the goal-setting challenge with a mindset shift. Caroline will walk us through the science behind imposter syndrome, how to identify triggers, and how to break free from the negative self-talk that holds us back. This isn't just another conversation on self-doubt. This is a blueprint to finally stop feeling like a fraud and start showing up as the person you are. Caroline, where in the world are you joining us from?
Oh, yeah, thank you. What a wonderful introduction. I am currently in Indiana, in the middle of the United States. We are about 3 hours southeast of Chicago, if that gives anybody any geography.
Oh, that's great introduction, because I'm going to be in Chicago in November, I believe. So I totally feel it's relatable. Your freezing cold is relatable because I'm joining from Torun, the birthplace of Nicolaus Copernicus, who was reading from the stars, and he was also, suffering from imposter syndrome. So you've delved deep into the science of imposter syndrome. For so many of us listening today, it's not just a fleeting feeling, it's a burden. Can you break down in your own words, what is it and why it feels so incredibly real, even when we have all the evidence to the contrary? I mean, we're successful, right? But still, that voice.
And what's funny about that is that imposter syndrome actually strikes most often in people who are the most accomplished. It's the folks you would never imagine are having those thoughts who are really working through them every day. a number of people have been very open about their imposter syndrome feelings. So Tina Fey from Saturday Night Live doesn't think she's funny, and in fact has been recognized as one of the best comic writers in the world. Tom Hanks thinks that the next film will be the one where he shows up and is no longer able to make you believe that he's feeling something. And so it's very much a sense of, I do this, I continue to move forward, but there's this burden that I'm carrying. That's a great analogy that makes it harder than it has to be. Because instead of just focusing on how I do the best performance, I also have to really psych myself up to remind myself that I deserve to be here, that I'm not going to be making so many mistakes they'll never ask me back again. And it's really a matter of worrying about your standards being impossibly high for anyone to meet, not just for you to meet. So it's a lot of what we have to do with imposter syndrome is a recalibration. It's recognizing that, first of all, our standards for ourselves are often impossibly high, and we can talk about how and why that happens. But it's also the fact that we look at ourselves and we know all of the stuff going on in our head. And so we think of, well, I know that I almost said the wrong thing, or I know that I, just did this at the last minute. Everyone else believes that we're performing fine, but we've got this self-doubt internally because we can see everything that's going wrong in our mind, everything that potentially is a mess up in our mind. Contrast that with what we see externally with other people, and frankly, what other people externally see with us, which is we look like we've got it all together. And so we assume that we're the only ones having this self-doubt because everyone else seems to be presenting so flawlessly. The reality is that more than 70% of people have felt this. And for people who are very high achievers in their fields, for example, if someone has moved on in education, that goes up to about 85% of people have felt the sense of self-doubt. And about 25% of people feel it on a very regular basis. And so we've really got this sense of people are performing very, very well. People externally would not know how difficult this is, but internally, it's an extra struggle to be able to step up and do your best work, because you don't just have to do it, you also have to talk yourself into it. And so there's a lot of extra baggage that goes along with it.
Extra baggage. And what are some of the common aha moments, those light bulb moments when someone might realize, wait a minute, this is imposter syndrome creeping in? Are there certain situations or types of goals that make us more vulnerable to this sneaky self-doubt?
Oh, great question. Yes, but we know, for example, that imposter syndrome is going to be triggered when we're learning something new. So let's say that whatever software system you use for email has decided to change yet again, and you're stepping up to just learn the few things that are different. The minute that it's a little bit hard, the minute it's even looking like there's a tad bit of difficulty, the response for someone with imposter syndrome will be, oh, well, I'm just technologically incapable. I'll never be able to make this work. This is finally when they're going to figure out that I'm just not that smart. When what we don't really give credit to is, no, what I'm doing is hard. I'm having to disrupt the way that I've done work for a really long time. This is going to take a little bit of adjustment. It's a learning curve. But people who are feeling imposter thoughts often don't give themselves the benefit of a learning curve. They believe that they're supposed to know everything immediately, that it's supposed to come to them quickly, or else something's wrong with them, as opposed to, this is hard and I need to think about doing it, not because I'm incompetent, but because this is new and hard. It can happen when we start a new position. It can happen when we're working with new people. Anytime things change and our performance is kind of brought into the spotlight for whatever reason, is a moment where we can stop and start doing that kind of comparison. Well, I'm not as good as what I see externally from so-and-so. Or where we can stop and say, oops, this is it. Maya Angelou is my favorite author, and I think she summed it up really well. She said, I've written 11 books, And every time I've released one, I think, uh-oh, here it is. Now they're going to figure out I've been running a game on everybody and I'm not a writer. And so it's that kind of, every time I'm trying something new, I'm pushing myself to a new level. I then decide, oh, this is going to be the time that I fail, and I fail big. So that fear is, I think, the biggest signal that we are blaming everything going wrong on ourselves, as opposed to recognizing that we're on a learning journey.
It's a learning journey. And I like another mantra, which is practice over perfection. And since you mentioned Maya Angelou, continue to be bold, courageous. Try to choose the wisest thing. And once you've chosen the wisest thing, go out and try to achieve it. Be it.
Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of my favorite quotations from her that's very similar is, if you'll forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. And that's got a lot of imposter syndrome implications there too, because we have this sense of, well, I should have known that. Really? I mean, why should you have known that? I've been with people who are navigating in a new city, trying to get somewhere. And when we arrive, they say, oh, well, that should have been easier than it was. Why? You're in a new place. There's no reason that this should have been easy for you.
You mentioned comparing ourselves to others. How can we stop that?
I think there's a couple of ways to at least mentally start the process, although we have to admit it's hard. I think we are primed to notice things about other people in comparison to ourselves. It's a little bit of a survival instinct. But there's also a sense in which we see other people performing in a way that seems effortless. And we know all of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes with us. And it's as if we see our own blooper reels and our own outtakes. But what we see with everybody else is this carefully edited, curated picture that they're presenting to the outside world. And so we tend to believe that we should be able to do things more easily, or we should be able to do things better because we see somebody else doing them with apparently a lot less effort than we're having to expend. And frankly, it's not the case that they're not expending effort, but we just don't see it. It's like the duck that is swimming on the water and seems to be very level from looking at it above the water, and below its little feet are going like crazy to make it swim. We just aren't conscious of the fact that other folks are also working hard too. We assume that it's harder for us. I think the social media has a big thing to play here too. We look at social media and we see this kind of conglomerate of what we believe everybody is doing. This really came to head with a friend of mine who had her first child. And I, about 5 months in, I said, so how is it? How's being a parent? And she said, oh, Carolyn, I don't think I'm very good at it. And I thought, oh, okay. Tell me more. I'm not sure I believe that. And her response was, well, I am supposed to be making she had a little boy, making his food, not allowing him to look at a screen, playing him classical music, making sure that he gets a certain amount of tummy time versus time on his back, making sure that, and she had this whole list of things that she was supposed to be able to do. And I said, okay, well, where did you get that? Oh, well, social media. This is what I see. And it turns out when we really broke it down, that what she'd done was take all of these things that one person was making food and one person was doing tummy time. And she thought that that's what that she had to do all of that. Because everybody was doing one, but no, if that's the right thing to do, I have to do it all. And so it's really easy for us to get caught up in a lot of shoulds and feeling as if we're always falling short because somebody else appears to be doing something that's better. We don't see other people's trade-offs. And I think that's a big part of it as well. We don't see how their time is being used in other directions. And so we just assume they have the same constraints that we do, and yet they're doing better.
Also, there is a lot of bragging on social media.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very unusual for somebody to say, oh, I'm having a really bad day. And, I stubbed my toe when I got up this way. We might tell a friend that, but we're kind of programmed to present this positive image. And so, yeah, that's a big piece of it as well. We very much are crafting how we want people to see us. in social media settings. And so if that's something that folks have truly bought into, and if their social media community is not one where they feel safe and feel they can be authentic, then we're really going to see a lot of folks feeling uncomfortable and like they should be doing more.
Mm. Also, there is another problem here about this negative self-talk. It's like a broken record in our minds. And sometimes we don't even recognize it. So switching off is a good strategy. What are some other actionable steps we can take today to start challenging those thoughts or stop thinking about and comparing ourselves to others?
What a great question. First step is to basically say, I am not owned by those feelings. I control them. And that is easy to say, but we often need to come up with some ways that we can that we can approach that whole concept. So here's what I did, and I think this this concept could work in a lot of different ways for folks. I actually took my inner imposter and I created in my mind. My inner imposter is this little purple guy, kind of shaped like a kidney bean, and his name is Imposter McFraudy. And that's just I made him visual. I named him, and essentially that was a way of saying, rather than trying to pretend it doesn't exist or just push it away, let me stop for a minute and kind of make it real, if you will. And so I've gotten to the point, I'm really visual. So I've gotten to the point now where if I think I'm hearing those voices, which like all of us, I do, oh, you can't do that. What do you think you're doing trying to? I will visualize a little purple guy sitting on my shoulder, whispering in my ear. And it's a conscious effort then to just kind of go, get off. And so anything that allows us to say, yes, these feelings are real, but I get to choose when they show up and when they don't. And I get to choose how I'm going to work with this today. So that's a really important first step, because I think so often we just, those feelings are here and we just work harder to push through, as opposed to stopping and saying, what's really going on here? And what is it that might be bringing these things up for me? And so the first step is just stopping and letting those feelings be real for a bit. Sounds a little counterintuitive, but the longer we keep running from them, the harder they're going to run to try to catch up with us. It's also a good idea to stop and do some calibration every day. So, for example, I'm diabetic. And so one of the things that I do is check my blood sugar fairly often. And I've gotten to the point now where I also will just kind of do a mental check at the same time. So just the same way that I stop and see how my body's doing and what I need to eat or not eat, I'll also stop and say, how's my mind today? How confident do I feel? What sort of fears am I letting get in the way? How am I letting perfectionism take over and letting the perfect be the enemy of the good? So asking myself kind of consciously, what are we doing? How am I feeling? And treating my mental health like my physical health is another way that can become really terrific. There can be a good way to get past it. Another, oh my goodness, find a friend that is your safe space. And it's got to be a person that you can tell your good things to and text when things are scary and say, oh my the text is, Imposter McFraudy is here today. Remind me why you love me. And having the folks in your life that can help you say, yep, get it. I understand that that's real. It's not really helpful for somebody to tell you don't feel that, because then you basically start feeling like an imposter because you're feeling like an imposter. It doesn't help. But instead, it's more helpful to say, wow, I'm feeling this today. And then have somebody remind you that there are other ways to view yourself and that you can move forward in a more positive light. So it's really stopping and checking in, making sure that you are letting those feelings be familiar enough to you that you can recognize when they're there, as opposed to running and not looking. Kind of stop and stare at them in the mirror for a little bit. And then make the conscious choice of, how do I feel today? And what do I need that's going to make me feel better? But boy, having that tribe of friends, that is the place that you can go is I think one of the most important components that we can bring to the table, and something coworkers can do for one another as too, that could make a whole workplace culture feel better.
Well, I wanted to ask you about, these getting these millions views through LinkedIn learning courses. Were you intimidated by the whole prospect of getting that recognition and feeling that syndrome, or you were just like a pro? It's another gig, another day, another sleigh.
No, it was very much the former. It's funny you said I was terrified. And what happened was, I don't think I realized the scope of how, that this is global. I don't think that really clicked for me until I got an email when the Imposter Syndrome course released fairly early after that. And it was from someone in Egypt who just was basically saying, oh my goodness, I feel this way too. And thank you for helping me put a name to it. And so it was simultaneously this jaw-dropping, oh my goodness, I have somebody that, in a country that I hope to visit, not, using me as a resource. That was terrifying and intimidating and all of those things. But there was also this really great moment of, oh my goodness, this is universal. And this is something we can all talk about. And so I think because this course really requires me to be vulnerable, to talk about my own imposter feelings and where this came from, it feels more now like sharing, like creating a community, like finding like-minded people. And so that's really helped me move past those frankly feelings of terror at the beginning. Excuse me, is feeling like I've really helped people who are like me. So the more I feel like people are connecting, I feel better. I feel less scared, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. We have a lovely comment from Jane. Hello, Beata and Caroline. Awesome topic today. Looking forward to it. And we also have a lovely comment from Shelley, who says, thank you. Lovely to hear from you. You definitely don't need to tune into our show because you've got lots of confidences. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask our expert today. So this idea of focusing on visualizing that little voice, or focusing on habits instead of just outcomes, is intriguing. Can you explain the power of shifting our focus to habit development? How does this seemingly small change make such a big difference in overcoming imposter syndrome and achieving what we truly deserve?
Thank you for phrasing it that way, Beata. It's what we truly deserve. And part of what we've got to wrap our head around is, excuse me, that we're really bringing value, that we are actually making people in the room better, and that the room is better because we're in it. And that really does take not only confidence and that you have built your skills and that you are someone who really has great insights, but it also requires you to believe that those have enough value to share with other people. And so oftentimes the shift is one of not, I need to impress these people, or I need to make them think of me in a certain way, but a shift that says instead, maybe I can be helpful. And we are more willing to try things, suggest things, talk about things when we're in that mindset of, well, I'm just trying to be helpful, as opposed to a mindset of, I'm being judged and people are going to think badly of me if I say the wrong thing. And so that's just an example of how making what I'm doing shift over to another motivation becomes something that allows us to relax and be more comfortable expressing what it is that we're doing. I tell people all the time, if you're going to try to do networking, which I know a lot of people hate, then if I looked at it as, how can I find people I can help? How can I find people that will benefit from having a conversation with me, even if it's just that I told them about a new restaurant? that becomes a much more comfortable conversation than I must impress this person because I need them as a contact. And so it's really getting to a place where you see yourself in a position of not trying to be authoritative or not trying to be better than, or not even feeling that it's competitive, but instead expecting that we're going to have cooperation and expecting that we're going to collaborate and that you're going to value what I say and I'm going to value what you say. Oftentimes it's reaching out and being the person who does that first. Remember, 70% of professionals, 80 to 85% of high achievers are feeling the same way. And so often when we come to the table saying, well, I'm going to put all of that stuff aside and just see if I can connect with you, the other person's imposter syndrome feelings are diminished as well. And you're able to feel accepted, feel that psychological safety, that positive regard. And it really does enable you to have better conversations and walk away feeling both more supported and like you contributed more. So the mindset shift really does change not just what we do and how we engage, but it also influences how we feel about the interaction later and how we evaluate it later. So rather than saying, oh, golly, I said 7 bad, dumb things, I'm saying, wow, I felt like I really got to know this person on a couple of different levels, and that's great. So it's really shifting what I'm setting as my goals for the ways that I'm interacting with people. And I know we're going to get to the goal setting piece, but that's really why the shifting in the goals becomes so important. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're saying, expecting this conversation to be a two-way conversation, be inclusive conversation. However, sometimes reality is not what we expect.
Oh, yeah.
How do we cope with resentment and with feeling betrayed, feeling ignored?
It's I'm going to go with a quotation from a former U.S. president, and Theodore Roosevelt said, "Do all you can with what you have where you are." In other words, did I do the best that I could? Did I give it my best? And if I did, and the response was negative or the other person wasn't forthcoming, I have to be able to walk away and say, okay, I feel fine about this because I gave it everything I had. I was well-intentioned and I tried to connect. If the other person isn't going to do that, it's no longer my fault. And I don't have to say, oh my goodness, I must have failed in some way. Instead, there's this real comfort in saying, I went in with the best of intentions and I was genuinely curious about the other person and tried to create a connection. If they thwarted that, if they pushed that away, I know I did the best I could with what I have where I was. And so that shift is not just, I want this person to love me. It's, I want to connect with this person. And the goals become really different in terms of the way I'm approaching the conversation. So goals are important because they really do drive our behavior. We know that setting goals, especially if we're particularly intentional about them and we really think about making them specific and all of those things, we know that our behavior is more focused and we're more likely to do what it is we've set goals around, merely because they're more often top of mind. And so my goals for an interaction, if I'm very, very confident in that, and I say, I'm coming in to connect. That's what I'm here for. I may not always achieve those goals, but I know that not always is that going to be in my control. I can say that my goal is to try.
Yeah, you might as well die trying. Now, expecting a great conversation is one thing, but actually, what about outcomes? Because we sometimes come with a set mindset to this job interview, for example, and we expect that there will be a follow-up email or call, and reality is not that way. Should we expect outcomes? Should we plan for the outcomes, or should we just have open mind? What would be your advice?
That is a beautiful way to segue us into this idea of goal setting. So let's stop and say, I'm just going to use an example. I'm an educator, so I'm going to use an example about students and grades because that's what I live with. So if I very often will have a student come to me and say, my goal is to have a certain grade point average this semester. And that always really worries me because I feel like that student is setting themselves up to fail. They don't always have control over how their grades are going to be done or distributed. They may be in a situation where grades are assigned on a curve and they don't really have the opportunity to influence that. I had an instructor in graduate school who told us the first day of class, I don't give A's. That's going to mess with your grade point average. And so you don't have control over whether I get a job. I don't have control over whether I get a grade. And so instead, the goal setting needs to be about what I can control. I can control how many hours or study periods I put in. I can control how many times I try to engage with the instructor and go learn. I can control kind of how I perform, how I study for a test, but I can't control how I perform on it because I didn't write it. And so the idea of setting back and saying, what is actually actionable for me is where goal setting really helps us start to do the right thing. So when we try to set goals around things that we just don't have control over, we're setting ourselves up to feel horrible. So I can't say I want this job. Excuse me. Well, I can say I want it, but I can't say my goal is to get this particular job. Instead, I can say my goal is to present myself as best as possible in this interview. My goal is to make sure that I share these 3 things that I think are really important with them as we go through the interview process. My goal is to learn these 4 things about the company. I can do those. I can control those things. I can't control whether or not they give me the job. And so it's a matter of being able to step back and say, I can feel really good about what I've done if I know that I'm doing things that I control. But when we try to set goals to control the rest of the world, it's a recipe for failure.
It's a recipe for failure. And now we are deep down into February and our goals are crumbling down. So let's talk about these big, beautiful goals we set at the beginning of the year. Once we start to manage imposter syndrome and focus on habits, how does this new approach actually unlock our potential to set and achieve truly meaningful goals?
Well, first you focus on the things that are actually doable. We talk about SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And we spend a lot of time saying, okay, my goal needs to be specific. I will lose this number of pounds. My goal needs to be measurable. I can get on a scale and figure that out. And then we just kind of skip over attainable and we go on to relevant, why is it important, and time-bound, by when. So, but attainable is actually where the real importance of goal setting sits. Because if we set a goal that is not realistic or not attainable, we're not going to be in a position to be set up for success. We're just going to think that we failed, not that the goal was hard. And so it's a matter of really setting back and saying, what are the small things that I can do? What are the baby steps that I can make to try to help this happen? The other thing that we do is try to do too much at one time. And so I don't know about you all, but I get really excited when I start writing my New Year's resolutions. And oh my gosh, I can fill a notebook. I just get really like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then I have to stop and say, and I still have a job, and I still have a husband and 2 dogs who need my attention, and I still have my family, and I still have, right? And so we don't think about how these goals are going to tie into our already full lives. We just think we can add them on the top and we'll be fine. And so that's why when we start to look at setting new habits or those kinds of things, the best goal is, can I do this for 10 minutes a day? Because,
can
I do this for 10 minutes?
Oh, absolutely. Micro actions, small steps that lead to big accomplishments. I'm mindful of another question from Olga. That's a beautiful question. I am minded to wonder, is it better to be blithely hubristic and just not notice any problems, or indeed to be sufficiently sensitive to have some feeling of imposter syndrome?
there's a lot of positives that come from those imposter feelings. First and foremost, we're notified. Our brain kind of lets us know, ooh, this could be difficult. This isn't business as usual. And so it's sitting with those feelings for a second and saying, what's going on here? Boy, that can just tell us all kinds of things. It can tell us that we're doing something that's important and hard. It might tell us that we don't feel good about the relationship with the person that we need to interact with, and maybe we need to be a little more on our guard. It can tell us that a project is really important and we do need to stop and devote the time to it. And so, no, I am not a fan at all of saying, let's just pretend problems don't exist. Because having that imposter syndrome is a really important way of keeping us protected, if you will. If we never felt scared, we do some really stupid things. And so recognizing that we've got this constraint that is our warning system that says, okay, do I need to take extra care here? That's really important. What I'm trying to purport really is not don't ever feel this, but it's more a sense of stop and examine why this is happening and understand what's going on. It may very well be that there's some self-protection that's required. It could also be that you're in a culture that is really making you feel like an imposter. So if you are the only person who looks like you in your work group, it's not your imagination. People are watching you more carefully. We follow the thing that's different. Our eye follows the thing that's different in a group. And so, yes, people are looking at you more. They are noticing you more. I grew up in public accounting, and it wasn't unusual to be the only woman in the room. And so knowing that, yes, it did make me feel uncomfortable. People were looking at me more often. They were paying kind of heightened attention because I was different. And that sets a really important message that says, we're not sure you belong here. You're not like us. And if your work culture is setting that up and setting those feelings up for you on a daily basis, man, that's a really important thing to know. It may be a culture in which you're not feeling safe and you're going to act differently if that's the case than if it's one in which you really feel you can connect with people. So it's pay attention to those feelings. They are really valuable. And those kinds of doubts, those kinds of pushbacks can sometimes give you evidence that something really does need your attention or something may need to change.
The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new, Socrates said. Finally, Caroline, for everyone watching who feels inspired to make a change right now, what is the one most important piece of advice, the golden nugget you want them to take away from our conversation today?
If you do nothing else as a result of being here, think about where you want to create a file. I call mine good things. You can call yours whatever you want, but put it in your email system or even just do something in paper. But what you need is to be reminded on a regular basis that there are people who really appreciate you and things that you do well. And so keep things that are just, thank you, that was really helpful. Boy, I really appreciated how you solved this problem. And make sure that you are allowing yourself to have those to reference what it is that you can do on a regular basis, that you have a sense of what it is that your value is and what you bring to the table. If you don't feel like you've got sufficient perspective on that, find someone that you know respects and supports you and ask them, what are the things that you believe I do really well? You may be surprised at the answer, but bottom line is consciously focus on and give yourself opportunity to remember those things that you do really well. Notice I didn't say that you do better than anybody else. That's not the point. Things that you do really well. And as long as you are working to get better, to improve, to try to challenge yourself, to try to grow, that's all it really takes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Caroline. Now, since we've been waiting for Jamil for a couple of episodes, she's gonna come in, and she wasn't fighting with imposter syndrome. Oh no, she was busy with AI. She's great at technology, and we are here to support her. Jamil, take it over from me. Bring these questions to Caroline today.
Hello, Caroline. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, doing well. So, before we dive into our standard questions, I have one question. Building on what we've been discussing, what resources or tools do you recommend for those looking to improve their self-confidence?
Well, there are a couple of really good books, and I must definitely recommend those. I always recommend a book called The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women by Dr. Valerie Young. It's probably the best researched book that's out there. It's came out in 2011 and definitely has some really good insights and some great ways to think about imposter syndrome in terms of types and some other really good ways. I think the other thing that I encourage folks to do is go find something like the Gallup's strengths profile or something of that nature that focuses on helping you identify those things you do really well and understanding the importance of knowing what you bring to the table, what you are uniquely good at, the combination of things that you have is a great way to start to think about yourself in a more positive way. And so finding any of the self-assessment programs, I'm a big believer in strengths, but there's a lot of other really good ones out there, Enneagram, DISC, any of those, that allow you to kind of stop and focus in a systemic way on here's who I am, here's what I do, here's the value that I bring. It's just a really great way to be able to shift your mindset and think about the things that you do really well.
That's nice. So, many women struggle with the what ifs and them not enoughs when it comes to career advancement. So, to empower our female listeners, what advice would you give to females to help their career or start an entrepreneurial journey?
I love the fact that we have these very linear ideas. Many of us as children, I know I was one of those, and a lot of my friends did too. By the time I was 20, I would do this. When I was 30, I would do this. And we just had our whole lives all planned out in decades. And, I will be promoted to this place, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, life gets in the way. Lots of things happen. Kids come, people get sick. Lots of different things can take our lives in different directions. And so part of the challenge, I think, is in asking yourself what it is about a career that defines success for you. And for a lot of folks, that's not supervising other people. For a lot of folks, that's not moving up in the organization. In fact, it might be about you really loving to solve complex problems. It might be finding ways to make a system work better or be more user-friendly. And so a matter of stepping back and instead of saying, here's what I think I should do, or here's what the natural progression should be, can I step back and say, what really brings me joy? What are the things about my work that I really like? And am I finding ways to do that regardless of what position I'm in? I think, too, a lot of our old components are about, what's the word I want? Are about things that we kind of had as expectations for careers and the ways that careers progress. And quite frankly, those aren't true anymore. Careers are not linear. They don't go logically from one place to the next. We move laterally a lot. And so we've got to find different ways to define career success. And really enjoying what you do and bringing your strengths to work is one way to think about it in a new, more, not less traditional sense that can, I hope, help people just appreciate what they have and what they're doing as opposed to what they think they should be.
And what are the top 3 soft skills all career-driven females, in your opinion, should have?
I am really big on empathy. And it's not because I think we have to do what everybody else is going to make everybody else happy. In fact, quite the opposite. Empathy is important because we understand how people feel and how other people might see situations. But that doesn't mean that we have to see it the same way that they do or conform to their way of seeing the world. But understanding it can help us interact a little bit better. I'm really big on listening, the ability to have a sense of what's the other person saying, what's the other person all about, and having a real good sense of connecting with someone rather than just talking and waiting for them to stop talking so you can dive in. And then the last one's curiosity, just this learning orientation that says, well, I'm just going to try to learn one thing a day. I'm going to try to get a little better every day. And that in and of itself is just, it's a way of approaching life that's a lot more fun. Like, what can I learn today or do today that finds some joy? And curiosity is what will help get you there.
Empathy, listening, and curiosity those are excellent choice. And even with the best habit building, we all have those low points. So how do you stay motivated when you feel like giving up on your resolutions?
Call a friend. I am lucky to have a husband and partner that is really good at those pick-me-up conversations. And sometimes we do need someone who loves us to step in and have those conversations with us. If that's not available, I think it's really important for all of us to kind of get a sense of what is it that brings me comfort? What is it that I find happiness in? And it's surprising to me how often we don't know that. So do I like quiet, or would I prefer music and loud? Do I like being with other people or being alone? What about art? Am I someone who likes to write or draw? For me, live performance, so a theater or a concert, is a way that I can absolutely lose myself and just appreciate somebody else's talents and be so grateful that they're sharing those with me. So what are the things that really allow you to just truly let go for a little while and be happy and be joyful? The other thing, I think everybody should have their very own fire up song. And it should be a song that when you hear it, they don't have a chance. You are just going to take on the world. For my dad, that song was "Do You Hear the People Sing" from Les Miserables. And man, he would hear that and they don't have a chance. And so are there things that I have that just remind me or pump me up? And that's another way to go about that as well. I think music is a phenomenal way to do that personally.
It is. So, none of us are able to achieve success without some help along the way. Is there a particular person who you are grateful towards who helped get you to where you are today?
We don't have enough time for me to list them all. I have been so lucky and blessed in terms of the number of people that have been so generous with their time and their insights. It's funny when this question comes up, there's two people that always come to mind. And the first was my first boss in public accounting. And the quote from him was, "Conduct yourself so that people around you will want you to succeed." And he very much was somebody who focused on the importance of building relationships and the importance of work happening when people are in concert and when people are collaborating, as opposed to trying to find a more competitive way of work. And so that his name was Bob Henry, and thank you, Bob, because that very much became a cornerstone of how I try to live my work life. In fact, there's a little a little magnet here on my desk that I got way back in the 80s that he gave us that has that on it. So I think that's a really big one. And then the second is just the people, and I guess it's cheating probably to call a circle, but I am lucky enough to have a circle of colleagues who are thoughtful and really interested in teaching and really interested in making our students better. And because we connect at that values level, we're very much able to just encourage each other to experiment. And if things don't go right, well, okay, let's figure out what to do next. And so, boy, shout out to Sherry and Daisy and Brenda and Tatiana and my crew that just, Brittany, where I could just say, yes, please, These are amazing human beings who help me remember why we're here.
That's very sweet. Are you working on any exciting new projects right now?
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Well, I think you and I need to talk offline because I just had a new class released on LinkedIn Learning a couple of weeks ago. And it's on using artificial intelligence to self-coach yourself to be a better leader. And so I have been living in this world of using our AI in some really creative ways to try to see how it can help you develop empathy and see how it can help to be, kind of a conflict resolution tool, or see how it can help me prepare for a presentation. And that has been so much fun. So that's probably the big project that I'm most enmeshed with right now.
Yeah. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water." In life, how are you in hot water? How are you brewing, Caroline?
I'm right now, well, I think a lot of that is because I have very much had to focus on do what you can with what you have where you are. My job is growing and changing in some really fun ways, and it's kind of overwhelming. And so, very much have had to make it a practice to be in the moment where I am, when I'm there, and focused more so than usual on trying to keep myself positive and do all of the things that I know are really good for myself. So right now I'm in a good place because all of that self-care is very much at the forefront. I'd be lying if I said that happened all the time. But currently, everything is changing. We're under a lot of different parameters that are up in the air right now, and I'm feeling pretty good. So this dunk into the hot water is good.
What is the number one book you can sit and think, "Oh, I wish I read before I started my career"?
Oh my gosh. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. 1967. So it was available before I started my career. Should have read it, but didn't until I was well into this. And again, it's very similar to the whole premise of relationships matter and how I interact with people matters. And that it's very important to really know people and try to get curious about what's important to them in order for work to actually get done. So that is a classic for a reason. And a big part of the reason that book was never, since I found it in the 80s, that book has never left my bookshelf.
Let's imagine that you could meet anyone in the world for a private breakfast. Who would it be and where would you choose to meet?
Ooh. Well, I'm going to Paris, just because for me, the best breakfast in the whole world is fresh bread in Paris. So that's a given in terms of the where. I think honestly, what I would really like right now is some of the people that are really conscious of working through their own imposter syndrome. So I mentioned a couple: Tina Fey, Tom Hanks, Michelle Obama is another. But people who have just been really conscious of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. There's a Broadway star by the name of Idina Menzel. If you know the song "Let It Go" from Frozen, that's her. And she has this wonderful philosophy of really wanting to say, I have to keep singing things where I make mistakes. Because if I sing something perfectly, it's too easy for me. It's time for me to move on. And I love that philosophy. So anyone who has said, no, I'm on a learning journey, those are the ones that come to mind, but I'm sure there's 100 more.
And for the last questions, can you please give us your favorite life lesson quote?
Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. It's a learning journey. It's absolutely about just getting better every day. And that keeps me remembering that I can't beat myself up about not doing something yesterday if I didn't know that was something I should be doing. And so it's appreciating what I've learned, appreciating that I can be better. That is absolutely a mantra for me.
That's very sweet. So, thank you so much, Caroline, for answering my questions. Let us welcome back Beata for
Thank you, Jamil.
Thank you.
Oh, hello. So you talked about your fire up song of your father. What is your fire up song?
Oh my goodness gracious. I not all of mine are appropriate for primetime consumption. But the two that always kind of work for me, I love Stevie Wonder's Sir Duke. I don't know what it is about that melody that just. There is a song called "She's a Bad Mama Jamma" that I get very fired up by. Yeah, those are probably the big two.
Excellent, Caroline. My fire up song is by James Brown. I feel good. I got you.
Great one. Oh, yeah, I may borrow that sometimes. I hope that's okay. That is
That's
great.
all right. Caring is sharing. Thank
Love
you
it.
so much for being here, and you truly a beacon of light in the world of leadership and personal growth, and really great to have you with us today. Let's get right into it. Stop letting your insecurities be your business strategy. Let's go for it. Let's build the future. And that's it from episode 172 of the PhD live stream. Thanks to our guest, Caroline Gerner. To stay updated and ensure you never miss Positivity Hack Delivered, follow Woman on it and turn on notifications. Next week, we're gonna have Susan Guido, who's going to read the future from the stars. Thank you so much to our lovely audience, Olga Vasina, Patrick L. Young, and from Shelley Lombard. This is it. This is time for you to hug the future. Forget about that inner voice. And if you don't like some things, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Another great Maya Angelou quote. Today is your day to hug the future. Hug the positivity you want. Thank you.
Thank you.